That's a little better. I want to see what it looks like when we shut this light off. That's worse. Let's see what it looks like.
What area were you in? Trim and.
All right, great guys. Thanks for your patience with that. Hopefully this new system will work for us. So we talked in passing, but we should have had a Learn Smart exercise and a quiz for both chapters last week. I think everybody other than Donnie got that done. Does that sound right to you guys? Okay, so Donnie will extend those dates. This week we will have a Learn Smart and a video. And we're actually gonna try to do both of those in class today. So hopefully you're done by the time you get out of here and don't have anything to do when you get out. We'll see how the time goes. Obviously, you know, you guys won't need this lecture, but we'll hopefully use the same technology next week. And I'm hoping to be faster. So like basically as soon as I get done, I can kick that link out to YouTube and we'll be good to go. Any questions about anything before we get going? So today's chapter is on ethics and corporate social responsibility. I may go off script a little bit on this chapter from exactly what the book had. Ethics is one of the, and corporate social responsibility, it's kind of in the eye of the beholder sort of thing. So your interpretation is going to be different than somebody else's, and so we need to have some flexibility and as we think about these things. When you guys think of the term ethics, just ethics by itself, what comes to mind? Morals, integrity,
What's reasonable?
Reasonable, fair, values maybe, okay? And so we're gonna learn about it. We're gonna try to talk about it some as well. The chapter opened with talking about this gal here, Patty, who left Microsoft after whatever 20 years and started to run the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that foundation or not, but they've got like $38 billion in an endowment. So it's a really cool concept because as we talk about corporate social responsibility, you know, Bill Gates is one of the early guys, Warren Buffett being another one, saying, hey, look, we're not gonna die with all this money. We're gonna actually start giving this money away so that we can make a difference in the community rather than just make money. And I think when a leader does that, it makes it a little easier for the next guy. Sure, he's not gonna have $36 billion, but he might have $1 million, or he might have 2 million, and he can start being more philanthropic with that. So I just talked about her running that Gates Foundation, then leaving and going to this Martha's Table, which is just a smaller nonprofit. It jumps into all these scandals that we ran into, and I don't know if you guys were paying attention to the news when that was going on or not, but we had all kinds of them, right? We had this Bernie Madoff scheme, which was a Ponzi scheme. Did you guys hear about that in the news way back when? I know it was a while ago. All he was really doing was he was portraying himself as this investment guru, and you would make, and he wasn't just like the individuals. He was like to the teachers union, to the Jewish Retirement Association.
To complete your smart book assignment,
he's getting those big people to give their pensions over to him, and he'd take those pensions and he would say that he was going to invest them and give them like 18% back on their money. Well, no one else in the market could get them 18%. So people were like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So they would give them their money. And for a while there, they would get their 18%. But he wasn't ever investing that money. I mean, he might have been investing some of it, but the reality is how he was paying the 18% was that he'd get the next person's money, right? So he'd have another investor give him their $2 million. He'd use that $2 million to pay out the 18% to the people he had. He's doing this like for 10 years. And of course, he's siphoned into his pocket the whole time too. So it's going great until, you know what? What blew his scheme up? It's going for 10 years. What wrecked his scheme? Why couldn't he then do it anymore? How's that scheme break down? I need you here.
I'm trying to get it connected to Learn Smart.
Yeah, you don't need Learn Smart yet. You just need the slides. You want to pull the slides up so you can see it better, that's fine, but you should just be
That's what I'm trying to do.
concentrating or taking notes. How's the Ponzi scheme thing go away? How's it work? Did I have your attention when I was telling you how it worked? You're Bernie Madoff. Shall I explain to you again how it worked?
So basically, I'm just getting the next guy to invest, that way I can use his money to pay for the next guy, it's like a pyramid.
Yeah, so I can pay the returns on the guys who've already given me their money. So what causes it to fail then? When I can't get the next guy's money, right? So now I've got $40 million and I gotta pay out 18% this month. Whatever that number is, it's a big number, and yet I didn't bring that money in this month. Why? Because the recession started happening, and no one had any money to invest. Everybody's getting scared, hold on to their money. So he didn't have the new money coming in. That's how he got caught. 151 years in jail, no parole. I think he lost, I don't know, it says right in the book, $40 million, something like that. I didn't more than that. In people's life savings. I mean, so people were train wrecked. Madoff swindled approximately $65 billion from investors, including $20 billion in losses that were never recovered. $20 billion. I'm surprised somebody killed that guy. So we had his whole stuff going on, but then we had other things. We had the Enron scandal, where people were starting to kind of cook their books. We had the mortgage crisis going on, where people were overestimating the value of these home loans. When I say value, the ability for those people to repay. And all this stuff was happening kind of simultaneously to the recession happening, and so it really brought ethics to the surface. So it gives the book jumps into, ethics first is more than just what is legal. I gotta find a better way here so I can't look down the book like that. I just like to have the book in case something slides by. Ethics is more than what is legal. And so we'll get into the framework that people may have to make ethical decisions. I'm on the bottom of 95, and it talks about one danger in writing new laws to correct behavior is that people may begin to think that any behavior that is within the law is also acceptable. You guys seen that just in rules in general? You're like, well, I'm by the letter of the law here, so now I'm almost permitted to do this, even though you might be going, it's probably a little sketchy to do it this way, but it's legal, so we wouldn't do it this way. So. And we're going to talk about two different ways to enforce ethics. A society gets into trouble when people consider only what is legal and not what is unethical. So there's the textbook definition. Moral behaviors that are accepted by society, right versus wrong. It sounds so simple. Let's do what's right. But in practicality, it can be really, really slippery slope. So example I use sometimes is, you guys are young enough, you probably never even put a stamp on a letter or put a stamp on a bill to mail it, but I used to have to mail my bills with a stamp. Well, I would take my bills into work and I'd run them through the business's stamper. Okay, so I'd steal 32 cents at a time. And That's stealing, really, right? I mean, it's the business's money, I just took it, I didn't ask permission, just did it. You know, and it's like, well, that's stealing. For me, it seemed like it wasn't that big a deal. So everybody's gonna make decisions along those same lines, with regards to making ethical decisions.
Was that not your business?
I would do it both. At one of my business, it wasn't as big a deal, but I would do it when it wasn't my business too. Anybody got caught plagiarizing? I caught my first student here on this campus, last semester plagiarizing. And, so when you get a chance to write papers, don't plagiarize them. I'm not a smart guy, but there's a lot of software out there. All I gotta do is copy and paste your paper into it, boom.
Were they in my class?
Huh?
Were they in my class?
I can't remember. I got a bad memory, Tiny. So here's some things, some basic moral values. We touched on these a little bit. We didn't touch on respect for human life, but I think that's kind of goes without saying. Self-control, that's a big one. Again, even though you might be able to get away with something, do you have the self-control to say, you know what, I'm not gonna do that. And then courage, how might courage come into ethics?
Reporting things.
Yeah, that's a big one, right? No one wants to out somebody, no one wants to be a tattletale or a rat or whatever. So it takes courage to be like, no, this is wrong, this is hurting our company, or this is gonna hurt the people in our company, or, you know, whatever, and speak up about it. Cheating, cowardice, cruelty, you get those. So I found the stat pretty interesting that dishonesty at school generally leads to dishonesty at work. Not shocking. We are what we practice. Right? So we practice shortcuts and easiest way out, and maybe not the letter of the rules. That's what we practice, it just gets easy doing that. I tell my kids all the time, it's like, don't quit. I don't want my kids to quit anything. Because kind of hard to quit the first time, a little easier to quit the second time, a lot easier to quit the third time. It's just what you practice. So the school setting is a perfect chance for you to practice making those ethical decisions. Cheating off paper, right? Looking over on a test, especially multiple choice, you're kind of like, all right, there we go, you know. Not a huge deal, or is it a huge deal, right? So you gotta make those decisions. So the book tries to give you a framework. You're sitting there faced with a decision. Should I do this? Should I not do this? And the book tries to walk you through 3 basic questions. First and foremost, is it legal? Obviously it's illegal, and you're saying, yes, I should go do this. We got a problem, right? You're gonna have a problem. And I get caught that time, you're gonna get caught eventually. So is it legal? That one's pretty straightforward. It may not be illegal for the state or the country that you live in, but does it go against my company policies? Kind of same sort of concept. That's illegal from a company business policy standpoint. And so that one's pretty straightforward, but the next one's a little more difficult. Is it balanced? What do you mean by is it balanced? What are some ways to think about that on your own?
I'm not talking about like, is it a win-win situation for
Yeah.
everybody? not
Win-win.
just benefiting yourself.
Or is it just, or am I just taking care of myself? That's a great way to think about it. What are some other ways to think about whether it's a balanced decision? Think about tough decisions, like, maybe not everybody can survive, and I gotta make a decision, an ethical decision. What are some ways that, so someone is gonna die. It's like, that's not a win-win for everybody, so I can't get a win-win. So what are some other ways to think about, is it balanced? If you're in a military situation, you're trying to make a decision.
I guess it's more for the standpoint of if somebody's going to die, like we're talking about taking the bullet or something, other than aspect of maybe taking the hit on yourself, so.
Okay, so you might put yourself at some more risk to try to protect the others. But think about like, greatest good for the greatest number, right? So what's the best I can do for the most number of people? That's balanced, right? I mean, it's still a bad situation, and some people are gonna get left shorthanded, but I'm trying to get the most people protected as I can. The other way to think about balance is the whole golden rule. Do to others as you want done to you. So is this decision how I would wanna be treated? Say if I owned the business, I wouldn't care if someone was stealing stamps money from me. Okay, but some other business owner might, right? So you gotta think through that. And then the final one is, how will it make me feel about myself? And I like the line in the book that says, am I feeling unusually nervous? You've had those experiences, right? When you're about ready to go do something stupid, and you're sitting there going, oh man, I don't know about this. Right? You know, it's just you're probably still gonna go anyway, right? Well, same thing in an ethical decision. You're sitting there in your gut and it's going, well, this isn't very good. Uh-oh. So, very practical ways for you to face an ethical choice and start to think through how you might handle it. Just giving you some actual examples of businesses that had trouble. This is just a little breakout again, talking about an entrepreneur that was trying to offer entrepreneur training to inmates. So that's in your book. Take a look at it. So let's look at question number 2 again. We talked about this, but how do ethics differ from legality? Like if you had to answer that essay question, how would you phrase that?
That just because it's not unlawful doesn't mean it has a negative moral or what society says is good or bad, more or less.
Yeah. Give me somebody else. How would you phrase that? One way you might be able to go at it too is be able to say, hey, look, laws are what politicians came together and put in place for the benefit of the public. But there are many other instances that the benefit of the public needs to be dictated by another code that maybe is not what laws are enacted or written down in the books. So we need to understand that there isn't a law for every decision. And so what we're leaning on is the collective fabric, the moral fabric, the values of the community that we are participating in to help us guide this decision making and some of these things we want to do. So here's where I specifically didn't necessarily love this book. So they mention all the things I'm going to talk about, but they don't emphasize them at the level I would like them to talk about. So it's talking now, it wants to move into, okay, so you own a business now, and you want to manage the business in an ethical manner. And so you want your employees to behave in an ethical manner. What are some tools that as a business owner you would have to help ensure that your business ran ethically? There's a bunch. Put yourself in, you own the business. Okay, we're making these tables right here. Okay, so all we're doing is producing tables, but we want to run the business ethically.
I guess it'd be more
You have 100 employees.
make it a better reputation, I guess. A better reputation, because if your employees are following more of the code of ethics and stuff, they're gonna be more productive because of their, it's hard.
Well, so
Quality, I guess. Their
you mentioned,
quality of work is greater because their code of ethic is based on being honest and.
okay, so you covered 2 things there. One is the outcome of running an ethical company is my workers are probably more productive, and my consumers will like my brand better. That's an output of why we want to, and we're gonna get to that as well. But you mentioned one in there of how we might actually do it. You mentioned a code of ethics. So one of the first things we could do is we could write things down, right? Entire list. We can try to provide some structure of company policies, do's and don'ts. Reasonable, right? Okay, is that gonna take care of it? Are there other things we can do?
You can have like someone in charge, like in a position to, deal with all the.
Make sure they're actually following the code.
Yeah, so you had, so now we can have this thing written down, but is it really gonna come to life and be a part of our team and our thought processes? Maybe not. But if I select a leader, especially if they're at, say, an executive level, and now they're our chief ethics officer, what's that tell the 100 employees that I have?
That there'll be accountability.
There'll be accountability. It matters. All right, I'm putting some money. I'm not just gonna write down this piece of paper and put it in your inbox, right? I'm actually spending some dough, and you see me spending some dough, so it matters. Okay, what are some other things? We're getting close. We got some stuff written down now, and we've got a leader. What else?
Talks about in the book to avoid government intervention in the form of new laws and regulations controlling business activities.
Well, that's a good, another benefit of, if we run an ethical company, we run a lot less risk of government intervention saying, hey, we gotta put these policies in place, and we gotta expand to OSHA and control even more, and, you know, et cetera. So that's definitely a benefit. But I want you right now just to think about, as an organizational culture, we have this leader now who's tasked with it, or think, what are some things he's gonna wanna do? He's already written the policies, what else does he wanna do?
Who he employs.
What?
Who he employs.
Selection, right? It's a huge one. So now all of a sudden, we can be very, very careful in our selection process of new employees. We might come up with some screening questions. Heck, you might even come up with like an integrity test. You know, maybe you deal with a lot of cash in your business, so you actually do some testing to figure out who is more prone to stealing and who isn't. Okay, so selection process, great. So now we've got a code of ethics, got a leader, got a nice selection process. What's the missing piece though?
I guess you could be also one of the employees after you have them read the code of conduct and have the leader there that they can, when you have new employees come in, the ethics are already there in the employees, then they'll be able to train the new employees to follow those ethics.
Absolutely. So what we're talking about there is, especially if we can get a full, robust culture that is facilitating ethical decisions at every level in the organization. Now when we bring that new selection in, they immediately just go, oh, that's how we do it, great. And they start to role model that. So that role modeling is very, very valuable. It started with the leader that we hired, but sure, it trickles down to everybody, looking at one another to decide how do we make these decisions. But there's still one more piece that I want you to think about. It's right there in front of you. How do you learn anything else in a new
Hire
business?
training.
Gotta have training. Right? I mean, no one puts you out on the factory floor without any training. Well, if we wanna ensure, if we wanna be certain that you make strong ethical decisions, why would we not train you on that? Right? So we gotta have some training. Okay, so now all of a sudden, look at the expenses that this business is now committed. Right, we've got some selection stuff going on, we've got some training stuff going on, all this is costing money. I got an executive level person that's kind of overseeing and leading and facilitating all that. So, you're running the table business, do you have all that stuff employed? Are you willing to spend that money? You personally, there's 4 of you guys in here. Are you willing to spend that money?
If it benefits the group or benefits the company
Well,
in the long run.
It's gonna.
in the long run, in the short run, it's gonna cost you dough right out of your personal pocket. Okay, so where I'm headed, so I think it's great, you guys all nod yes. Where I'm telling you that is that's a tough decision. You're sitting there going, I gotta eat, my kid's going to private school, this business is my source of income, and I've gotta make some money, and I got good people, they're gonna make the right choices. Right? So I'll write that stuff down, I'll put it on a thing, and we'll call it good. So that's what a lot of businesses have done for a long time. And then they go, they're Enron, and their executives have been stealing. I mean, they got 8, 9 people working together to steal from the company to make it look better. I'm sure they didn't really intend to steal forever. They just thought, well, if we kind of get through this rough patch, we'll put the money back. Right? The next thing you know, your company's completely devalued, goes bankrupt, people have lost everything. Your employees who were trusting leadership are like, what happened? Because we didn't wanna spend the money to do some training and maybe hire somebody to be an advocate for ethics. And I just felt like the book did not really hammer that stuff home like I really wanted it to, so that's where I wanted you guys to, focus your attention.
My senior year of high school, we had ethics advocates come in our class and speak, just all about ethics.
And was it like a focus more on like cheating or also outside of class, like
Just
making good
everything.
decisions, like
Yeah,
just in general?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, I get frustrated with like the whole school system's, lack of teaching with regards to leadership, but they don't teach much with regards to ethics. And yet, think of like what you're gonna functionally use every day. You're gonna make tons of decisions in your life. And some of them you're gonna make like that, you know, instant. And we're not really setting people up to have a frame of mind of, you know, win-win or, you know, all these complexities, so factors influencing managerial ethics. Again, I don't know if you can see my cursor, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, no. So, we talked about on the screening side, obviously we come up with some framework, values, indicators, we might be able to screen and bring in the right individuals. And then we talked about this, we didn't touch on this one though. It was kind of a managerial adage, I guess, celebrate what you wanna see more of. Right, so maybe we also need to not only not penalize a whistleblower, maybe there's a way for us to, yeah, like incentivize, or maybe not celebrate, but at least recognize it was helpful for the organization, you know? So now those folks that maybe do have something to say, and they're like, ooh, I don't, they're like, wait, last month, or last year, or 2 years ago, this person did that, and it was accepted well, okay, maybe I can step out there, okay? So we didn't talk about that one, but reward, and then on the environmental, on this, then it's like, there's some great ones like, in the other book I've read on this topic, Pepsi, I'm making it backwards, but Pepsi was approached by a Coca-Cola employee who had like some secret stuff. I don't know if it was the actual recipe for Coke, but they had some high level corporate information that was very clearly important and special to Coke. And he approached a Pepsi employee to like buy this stuff from him. Okay, so now you got two things going on. You've got the person who's clearly selling out his organization. I think most of us quickly think that person's a bad person, right? But what about the Pepsi employee? Right? If you're the Pepsi employee, do you buy the information?
It wouldn't be.
You
ethical.
shouldn't.
You shouldn't, right? It's like, but it's right there, that slippery slope. Again, go back to, so take, maybe Pepsi Coke isn't the best example because they're like have so much money and et cetera. But think about, you've been duking it out with this other guy in the same table business that we have in your backyard for 10 years. And you have a shot here, opportunity. You didn't go looking for it, just fell right in your lap. Tougher decision, isn't it? Anybody still certain like there's just no way, that's cheating, I'd never do it? Or are you at least rolling around your head going,
I feel like most companies with that opportunity that would actually probably take it because it would benefit the company and help.
and everybody I care about is gonna get better.
I would probably report it and then ask if they wanted me to still buy it. That way I reported it, but we still get the information.
Yeah, that's what actually the Pepsi guy did. So the Pepsi guy actually went to Pepsi, then Pepsi went to the FBI, they busted the guy, you know. And that's why it was in an ethics book, right? Because they made the right ethical decision, but I'm telling you, those things are tough.
So I feel like that's like more of like a red ocean principle, like.
What do you mean?
Cause there's the red ocean and blue, cause the last semester we were out in my class, we talked about red ocean and blue ocean, strategies, and so.
Don't know that term.
So red ocean is pretty much all these high companies that have been in the market for a while that are just trying to be the top of the top of the top and not trying to renovate or do new things to help make the company succeed even more. So they, like that example that you just gave, they would have taken it in a heartbeat to crush the competitor, and
Yeah.
then like the Blue Ocean's more of like the coming into a business with a different idea or approach on things.
Okay,
So it's something
kind of
to
the
be
next
able
sort of
to-
generation of approach to maybe what the goals of the business are. We're getting to corporate social responsibility, and that might be connected to what you're talking about too. Yeah, so it's one of those things that we can sit here and say we do the right thing, but I think if you really, really reflect on yourself, I think it'd be a lot tougher decision than you think. Two different approaches, and not that these are mutually exclusive from one another. You can do both of them at the same time. But conceptually, there's two different ways to go about writing or structuring a code. There's what they're calling compliance-based ethics codes. A lot more of like control, reward, or penalize, carrot stick. Right, so let's try to write down the codes that our people need to know, and let's enforce those codes. And those that are in compliance, let's celebrate those, and those that aren't, let's penalize them. Kind of command and control structure. You with me? That's compliance-based ethics codes. Integrity-based ethics codes are now really saying, hey, look, let's try to help people understand the values that we value as an organization, the things that we think are important, some of the goals that we have as an organization, kind of our vision, and let's get people to really believe that we're all in this together. Because if we all are shooting for the same goal, and we all value the same things, and we all know that one person can't get there without the others, then we're going to be inclined to make decisions that are beneficial for everybody. You see the difference in the approach? Would you work better in one approach over the other? As an employee, is there one that you would prefer? Command and control, or teach, develop, set goals.
Probably integrity.
Yeah. What you guys?
I think more of an integrity because of more, I love learning. I like improving myself and stress shared accountability, like it helps everybody to improve
Okay.
instead of just hammering on one person.
Okay. What do you think?
Integrity.
Okay. You fading out?
Maybe not everyone, wants to be controlled.
Yeah, I think the thing about the integrity approach is it sure does put a lot more trust in your people, right? It starts from a tone of, we trust you, we think you're capable. I tell a story about my son goes to Wabash, and their code of ethics is one sentence. It's the gentleman rule, and it's basically like, at all times, conduct yourself as a gentleman, both on campus, off campus, and, et cetera. That's their entire handbook. Don't write anything about when you can drink, where you can drink, where you can park, when you can park, nothing. Right, and so what do they believe in? They believe in that they're gonna basically create a culture of accountability where everybody realizes if that guy's a knucklehead and he goes to the hospital from drinking too much, it's gonna affect us all. So you know what? We better get him cut off or get him somewhere safe or, whatever. And so it creates a culture. So that's kind of what integrity-based ethics codes is trying to do.
So with that college being said, do they dump money into like a program or a class that helps teach them the integrity or the ethics that they do?
Well, yeah, so I'm
Because
not sure if there's a single event, but it's a unique place because it's an all-male college, so it's 900 all dudes. So pretty much they're teaching you the Wabash way, the way to be a gentleman, even before you come to school there. The whole recruiting process, the events that they do, are all teaching you what's gonna be expected of you, basically.
I didn't know if, because they had their code of ethics written in there.
Yeah, it's right.
I didn't know if they
Yeah.
invested money.
Yeah, so think of like, I don't know if any of you guys played sports or not, but the brotherhood you have with your sports team, football team, whatever. Well, there are 900 all dudes, probably 300 or 400 of them are athletes on a team. So now they have their sports team brotherhood, plus a lot of fraternities there. So they have a fraternity house brotherhood. And then, oh, by the way, there's only 900 people, so we have a 900 all male brotherhood as well. So you're really drinking the Kool-Aid from day one of, you know, we're all in this together, you know. So like the fraternities compete, but they're also still very friendly to one another, you know, so it's just interesting. So yeah, so they do a great job of teaching, you know, how to get that done, especially when somebody messes up. So again, if somebody messes up, they will punish that person, but more importantly, they'll bring the whole campus together and be like, he did this, what could we have done differently? Well, we could have done this, and they'll do a whole session with like the deans or whatever for people to realize, you know, what they need to be doing differently. So yeah, so a lot of support behind that. That's the only way that stuff works. So we touched on this a little bit, but and this is the section that they go into, but they don't go into it as much as I would like them to, with regards to the culture you need to create. If you want to improve your ethics, you have to improve the culture, in my opinion. Because I can write the strongest code of conduct, but you know how things change. Just even technology alone. Like I can have a really good code of conduct, and now all of a sudden, you know, cell phones become as popular as they do, and I didn't quite get it updated in time, or I updated it. The person who updated it didn't really know all the features that a cell phone can do, and how you might be able to take pictures and steal corporate information with them, and you know, so I think the only way to get it done is to have a culture, and that starts with the leadership making a commitment to that. You know, we talked about, you know, celebrate what you want to see more of. You also could use the old analogy of you get what you pay for, right? We just talked about the cost associated with ethics, and if as a business you're not willing to shell out any money for ethics, it sends a pretty strong message to your people, doesn't it? Right? Same way with safety. I mean, safety is ethics, but if you don't spend any money, if no one sees any money being spent on safety, we all go, not that big a deal, I guess. It's just human nature, right? So if we're spending some money, if we have some leadership, if we're developing a culture, we're gonna have an improved ethical environment. Training, again, all the things we talked about. Whistleblowers, what are they? Insiders who report illegal or unethical behavior. Ethics is really starting to extend beyond your own four walls of your business. You saw this with Nike, got in so much trouble with, you know, the sweatshops, but no one really cares if you're a contractor, you know, you're Kyle Manufacturing in Thailand. No one cares about Kyle Manufacturing in Thailand ethically until I start making for Nike or some other large brand that people don't care about then. Right? Think about McDonald's. You know, we don't know and we don't care where the meat is coming from or where the fries are coming from or how, whatever, until we think someone's being mistreated and McDonald's has turned a blind eye. So it's becoming more and more important that not only do you have your own ethical culture in your building, but now you're starting to hold your suppliers accountable for that same ethical behavior. That can be difficult. Right? So let's say we're making these tables and I'm your supplier of wood. Okay? And I'm not running an ethical operation and you want to run an ethical, what can you do? What tools do you have within your arsenal to impact how I'm running my wood business?
Doing business with them, period.
Okay, so I can pull my business from them. Okay, what if I make the best wood in the entire world and you don't want to pull my business? What else can you do?
I mean, you built somewhat of a relationship because you guys are working together to make products, so I guess just in a corporate standpoint, talk to the actual corporation about maybe
Okay, so I might offer some help. Maybe they don't, maybe it wasn't their goal to run an ethical business, maybe they just happened that way and they don't know. Okay, so maybe I'll offer some help. Maybe I could bring them, let them see my, ethics officer, how he's running and what he's doing with his training and all that. There's one other way. Why might he, I'm the wood manufacturer, why might I have decided not to do any ethical training, not even do a code of conduct, not hire the employee?
Money.
Money. Right?
Invest in something.
Yeah, so what if I went to my supplier and I said, look, we love the product you're making, but I cannot deal with anymore the fact that you're pumping raw sewage into the river or whatever they're doing, right, that you don't think is ethical. What if you said, and yet you know he's got the best wood in the world, I don't wanna go somewhere else. Well, you know that, and there's a price for that, right? So you can say, hey, look, I could change suppliers and jump over here, but you know, he's not pumping sewage into the ground, but he's got child labor. So there's no perfect solution, but this guy's got the best wood, we know each other, he produces on time, I like that. Is there a way for me to go and say, look, I'm gonna give you X more per pound or X more per whatever, but I need that money to go to this sort of program? You know, and the guy goes, really? You give me more money? Yeah, but I need this to happen. And then maybe based on the relationship, they go, okay, this is important to this guy, and I wanna keep this customer, and, you know. So you gotta think about things like that. And then we gotta enforce them, just like, I mean, you guys don't have kids yet, nobody have kids? You don't have kids yet, but, kids are beautiful at finding the cracks of what's not gonna be enforced and what isn't gonna be enforced. Right, if that rule is not enforced every time, it gets harder to get it enforced. Same thing with ethics. So if we're not enforcing, if there really isn't any sort of, don't do that, eventually, people start going, like 1 out of 3 times somebody gets in trouble, I'll take my chances.
Well, especially if like, just a couple people don't follow the rules at first and then you don't act on them, then other people start to see that and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I can do this too. It's harder to
Rein it
get
back in
on
and,
500 people as opposed to like
yeah.
10 people.
Totally agree. So I worked at Dairy Queen as a brazier boy, and when I first went to work, there was a brand new building, so I was like one of the first employees ever in there. And of course, everything was by the rule: the way you cleaned, the way you cooked, the uniform you made, you know, everything. Well, I had to wear these little dumb hats and like these khakis and this shirt, whatever. And pretty soon I'm like, man, this hat has got to go. So I ditched the hat and I'm wearing just a regular baseball cap, and I'm like, oh, it's so much better. Well, I'm in the back, so they kind of let it go a little bit, right? And then next thing I'm going, these khakis, I don't wear khakis. If I could go in my jeans, I could just come right from whatever I was doing and throw a hat on, throw my shirt on and go to work. So next thing I'm wearing my jeans, right? I'm supposed to wear dark shoes, next thing I'm wearing whatever shoes I want to wear. And, you know, meanwhile, then someone would hire in and they would go, all right, I'm wearing that. You know, so exactly right. It's like, same thing with ethics. If you start letting it go, it's gonna be tougher to bring it back around. You know, if you're in a situation and you wanna, I don't necessarily like the whole term, you know, whistleblower. I think it's a little more dramatic than it really needs to be. You know, I would like to think that, you know, you'd see something that you didn't feel comfortable with, and you would quickly make an approach to your supervisor and say, hey, look, why are we doing this? Does that run risk of this? And ask for feedback, you know, because you don't have all the answers. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not taking into consideration all the moving parts. Okay? And if then you get rebuked with that, like, what do you just go back and do your job? I got this. No real explanation of, you know, why it might be doing or whatever. You start to go, huh. You know, so then you might start observing a little bit more, documenting or whatever, and then maybe you've got to reapproach maybe his supervisor, right? But you know, you don't want to just go willy-nilly, and we know that. I mean, people don't respond well when you're trying to throw somebody under the bus, right? So you got to be very, very careful to have all your things documented and together. So what's the difference between compliance-based and integrity-based?
Control and environmental.
I like control, let's use a different term other than environmental for the, you're talking for the integrity-based?
Culture.
Yeah, culture would be probably a better term, because environmental makes me think just like whatever's going on out there. Culture makes me think it's whatever going on out there, but I've kind of shaped it, okay? But yeah, that's good. We're gonna take, a quick break here. We're gonna come back and, we're gonna do a little bit of your Learn Smart, then we're gonna jump in, we'll do a second presentation on corporate social responsibility, and then we're gonna do a video case, okay? So I'm gonna shut this off and get this pushed out and see if this all works. And you guys can take a break, and then we're gonna come back and do those things.